show up to a location you've never seen before. The sun is beaming in and you only have one light. And on top of all this, it's the middle of winter, so the location doesn't even look pretty. Well, that's kind of the situation I was put in with this spec ad, but was actually able to pull out a decent result that I'm really happy with. So I want to break down my thought process and the tools and steps that I used to create this video basically by myself. Our story kind of starts before I got to the shoot. Now, while this is a spec ad, it was a spec ad for a marketing company. So they actually paid me to create it, but they weren't getting paid to create it, if that makes sense. Because of this, I knew the product that we were shooting, and I knew that the general goal was to pitch our services to said company. So I started thinking through the shoot, and I actually went on FrameSet and found a bunch of frames from different commercials that I could reference for this project. Now, this wasn't my shot list by any means, but it at least unified the creative director and I on what I was seeing in my head, so that when we showed up to the shoot, he wasn't caught off guard by any of the things I was doing, and we could work together to achieve the same goal. Now, I didn't have an opportunity to scout this location. In fact, I've never been here in my life, and I didn't receive any pictures ahead of time. So when I actually show up to the shoot, I showed up probably like an hour earlier than when we were actually supposed to start shooting and when the talent would arrive. And when I walk in, this is what I see. It's dead trees all over the house. While the house is beautiful, it wasn't really something I could actually point the camera towards just because of the nature of everything. It was elevated above the place where we were going to be filming. And on top of all this, the sun was beaming in at a decent angle, but was fully backlighting all the stuff that we were doing. So I didn't want to front light everything, because if I front light stuff, then I have to point the camera back towards the house and it's front lit. But at the same time, if I only backlit everything, then it would probably come out a little too moody for the client and what they actually wanted, which was a very happy, fun commercial. So this is when I brought in the Aperture 600D. And basically the goal with this was to create a second sun. And Blaine Westrop has talked about this technique, so it's nothing new, but I actually used that off to the side so that it essentially wrapped the sunlight. So you have the sunlight coming in behind the subject, and then you have your second sun coming in from the side, just with the cone on it, like nothing special. But what I liked most about having this second sun was that it wrapped the hard light that the sun was already bringing in. If I had tried to bring in some sort of like super soft but powerful source, it would have been like not proportionate to what the scene actually looked like. Like, that sun is coming in, and so any additional light really needed to feel like it was hard light. But there was one point where I'm talking to the guy who owned the house, and he's talking to me, and I just took a moment to observe what was happening on his face before I had lit anything. And that is something that I think, is super important to do, because when I looked at his face, what I saw was he's got the hard light coming in from the sun. He's got some bounce coming up from the concrete that's like kind of wrapping it a little bit. But he also had this like really cool, almost blue, like very subtle source above his head. It was essentially like the skies were blue, and so as the sun is going down, that blue sky was actually giving us some level. And so I knew that that was probably going to be there. And I even almost set up an additional light to try and mimic that soft blue source, but I decided against it. One, because it was just too windy and I was about to set up a huge kind of like booklight rig. Two, because it was just me, so didn't really have time. But three, and most importantly, because the sky was already doing that work. So that kind of brings me back to using one light. And the reason I only used one light is because when I set up that 600D and it's blasting in 100%, I was really liking like how everything was looking. And I just thought like, okay, there is more that I could probably do to really hone this in. But what we're getting right now is, I think, pretty solid and looks good. Because of that, I'm just gonna stick with it. I'm just gonna let it ride. And when you're doing one-man band filmmaking, I think that you kind of have to have that like outlook of like, okay, I'm not gonna overdo it here. Like, I'm just going to light the space. Trust that if I light the space well enough, then I'm not gonna have to worry about anything else. Like the scene will look good enough for me to capture a great image. Like right as the talent is showing up, I'm doing a couple more things around the environment, because when I started pointing my camera at stuff, I started realizing that, yeah, we have all these dead trees behind us and it's not the most pleasing scene. But this is a grilling ad, so it needs to feel like summer. Luckily, the homeowners had a very beautiful blue pool that was in their backyard, so I wanted to maximize that as much as possible. But they also had these colored lawn chairs, or like deck chairs, I guess, that were kind of in the back. So I arranged those to kind of be more in the shot, because some of them were blue and some of them were red. And I just knew that having that extra color just even blurred out in the background was going to just enhance that kind of like summer feel. Something that I've been doing as I've been setting everything up is just basically getting a feel for the direction that I want to film. And I've talked about this in a previous video, but there's a rule called the 180-degree rule, which basically says that you're going to like not get any shots that aren't on one side of the 180-degree line. Like you're gonna set a line in your scene and you're only gonna get shots from one side of that scene. And this helps you do two things. One, it's gonna help you with that upstage lighting aspect, where if your lights are on the opposite side of the 180-degree line, everything will have that upstaged lighting look. But on top of that, it also makes it more like digestible for the viewer, because if you suddenly flip that 180-degree line, there's actually a weird effect that happens that's a little unsettling. So I was thinking about that, trying to figure out where in the scene I should like direct my 180-degree line and my field of view, I guess, and kind of landed naturally on pointing a little down on a lot of the shots so I get some of that pool in the shot, but also pointing towards those chairs that I had set up kind of in the corner of the yard. All that being said, before we start talking about the shooting, we should probably talk about gear, because I know that's probably why you're here. So shot this project on the Fuji X-H2S. I've got a video coming out at some point in April about this camera, because I've spent a year with this camera. And really the synopsis of that video is that it is the camera that I will pick up 100% of the time when I know that I want to create a image that is pleasing and that I love, but I don't have any budget to get anything else. But if I do have the budget to get something else, I'm probably going to do that. And I don't know why that is. So you have to watch that video to find out. If it is out at this point, then it'll be linked here. But shot it on the Fuji X-H2S and these Leica R Elmarit lenses. Now, these lenses are my pride and joy. So I love these lenses. I kind of like borrow them and share them with a couple other guys. And so I had them for this shoot, and I was very happy that I did, because you can see the character in a lot of the flares and the frames. Everything's pretty much handheld aside from a couple tripod shots. Shot everything in slow-mo because, well, that's not really how I like to shoot. I feel like it was going to give us the cleanest result for this ad, so just went ahead and did that. And then you get the 600D. Now, the way I thought about this shoot was just to simply get the coverage. So I wanted to capture everything that was going on in the scene and get wide shots, tight shots, and highlight the products as much as possible. So that's what we did. We filmed the process of our man cooking chicken wings and doing some like basting and cooking some vegetables and fruit. And that was that. I will say it also helped that purely on accident, the talent was wearing a blue plaid shirt. So his blue shirt, the blue pool, some of the blue chairs, and the blue sky all kind of tied together to create what I think was a very unified set of images. But lastly, I want to talk about this shot that I got from underneath the grill. I had seen this shot on Frameset and it really inspired me, but it was in a music video. So I was like, this isn't a really common shot that you might get for an actual commercial. Luckily, the owner of the house had a spare grate for a grill. So we just set that on top of the existing grill and this little cart that we had on the side and put the food on it as if it was being grilled. And then I shot from underneath it. And as he picked up a piece of chicken, I came up like this to see him set it on a plate. And then in After Effects, I added this little heat distortion effect, which is very subtle, but hopefully helps you feel like it was actually the grill. So that is the breakdown for this video. I don't give you this information saying that I crushed it on this video or that I am just some crazy cinematography genius or anything like that. I find myself in situations like this all the time, and they don't always come out looking like this one did, where I'm actually proud of it. And so I wanted to give you the info that I learned and my process that I went through so that hopefully when you find yourself in a similar situation as a filmmaker, you're able to really make the most of it and come out with a product that you're genuinely proud of. So I'm gonna be doing a lot more self-assignments and spec ads throughout the year. So if there's anything like a prompt that you think I should work off of or any type of video you think I should make, let me know in the comments. And until next time, let's get out there and make better films.